This review is for Warcraft, Behind the Dark Portal, Inside the New Film, written by Daniel Wallace. Now, like most non-Chinese people, I wasn't particularly impressed with the Warcraft movie. However, I think there's no denying that visually it was a pretty spectacular movie, and thankfully that is a tradition that this book really lives up to. Visually, this book is just so stunning, and there are also these, only 2 or 3 of these interactive elements. So here you can see this sort of folds out and shows you these really amazing costume designs, and I just am such a sucker for books that have sort of interactive elements like that. I think it really makes the book so much more. It's completely unnecessary, but I think it just makes the book that much more fun, and something that a ebook version could never properly replicate. And I only wish they had have included more in this book, because like I said, I think there's only 3. So on the cover, it doesn't say art or making of, it just says inside the film. And this is one of those books that tries to be both an art and making of book. And I know a lot of people sort of get very prickly about the art to making of ratio. So with this one, I definitely consider it more of an art book. The artwork in here is some of the best fantasy concept art I've ever seen. It's really fantastic. I think they did such an amazing job of trying to blend the very cartoony, stylized World of Warcraft with a more traditional, medieval European fantasy approach, and the designs do such a great job of balancing those 2 styles. Here's another one of those interactive elements. It's Khadgar's journal, I think. And you can't read any of this stuff because it's in whatever language, but just the way it's designed, it's all so beautiful. Really fantastic, really fun to just have this sort of thing included just to look at. This is a great spread. More pages from his journal. These style of sketches sort of appear throughout, and I do think they are actually, like I said, included in Khadgar's journal, and they just look really great. See, so there are some more for Garona, and I just love that balance between the cartoony designs of the Warcraft games and say something like The Lord of the Rings, where the designs are a bit more perhaps realistic. They really still sort of kept the a lot of the big shoulders, the big helmets, things like that. And like when you watch the film and see the stills of the armor and things like that, everyone sort of looks almost like the armor is like plastic. Everyone sort of looks like an action figure almost, which I actually really liked. I was trying to think of a term to describe it, but I actually think in the book the costume designer describes the look as something that looks like it came out of a storybook, which I think is absolutely perfect and definitely captures the aesthetic of this film. It's very unique, and even though the story and the film as a whole wasn't particularly great, I think they did a really great visual job with this movie, and this book does such a great job of capturing that. One thing I really like that it does that a lot of other art and making of books fall prey to is they use a lot of screenshots from the final film, and this book doesn't do that. It very rarely uses any screenshots. So see, something like this is from the final film, but really it's only to sort of show comparison. That's sort of something that continues throughout the book. You only see frames from the actual film when they're trying to illustrate a point made in the text or show a comparison with a concept piece. So screenshots are rare but used very appropriately, which was really nice that they're not trying to fill up space with that. And then beyond the amazing choice of concept pieces they've included in this book, the actual design and layout, like you can see, everything is just huge. All the pictures, there are no small pictures in this book. Everything is really big, really laid out really wonderfully. You can see so much detail, and just the look of the book, the design, the layout, it's great. I'm not sure if you can really see any, but the color of all this text is silver, and on the black background it looks fantastic. The book is really, really well designed. Everything just looks so fantastic. It's such a visual treat to go through. Then we get to the text, which is not nearly as good. So if you come to this book looking for really great insight into how this movie was made, you are going to be very disappointed. The text is essentially devoid of any insight related to how this film was actually made. It's just all that sort of soundbitey nonsense crap I really hate, where they're just talking about the characters, their motivations. Like, if you've seen the film, and have even the slightest understanding of how movies are made nowadays, 95% of this text is just going to be blah. It's just superficial, obvious fluff. And so then you get to the center and the book actually sort of turns upside down, because they're sort of really trying to hammer home that idea of duality. So you turn the book over and then you've got the Horde section, which is just slightly smaller than the Alliance section. And, having this thing of the dual book that you need to turn upside down and read from back to center again is just a novelty, and that I wasn't particularly impressed with. But then I read in the introduction that the very first Warcraft manual was actually done in this style, with the human perspective on one side and the orc on the other. So then I actually thought, okay, that's actually pretty neat that they're sort of, throwing back to that tradition. This Horde section is really, really great in my opinion. It shows what I think the book should have been. There's a lot less sort of making of text in this Horde section. The Horde section really feels much more to me like an art book. There are a lot more designs overall, and even though there's not necessarily as much variety, it just is visually, to me, I really enjoyed this section. And yeah, so even though I was very disappointed by the lack of making of, it really didn't detract from my overall enjoyment of the book in any real way. The text itself, it's not like actually bad, it's fine. It just sort of helped keep you in the mood, keep you in the world. Now, I know most people actually prefer art to making of books. I'm the other way around, and I always wish they would include more making of stuff and less art. But in this instance, for this book, I actually think they really should have just got rid of the text, because except for the occasional fact or Easter egg, it's completely useless, and doubled down on this as an art book and really just filled up the text space with more pictures. And if they had have done that and included a couple more of those interactive elements I was talking about, I really think this could have been a contender for possibly the best fantasy film art book I've ever seen. But because it's not that as it stands, it's maybe, a 4-star instead of the 5-star it could have been. So overall, I think this is a fantastic book, except for the quibble with the text that I mentioned. I think that just visually this book is so fantastic. It's a real shame how few fantasy movies get nice lavish art books like this, and this one's just does such a really great job of capturing it. And like I said, even though I'm not a fan of the movie and I doubt I'll ever see it again, I really hope they actually continue making more Warcraft movies, if only so we can get some more books like this.